Hi and welcome to my caravan vlog. Two things actually today I'm going to mention is firstly, well, more than two things actually. Firstly, I'm going to mention the fact is that about a caravan industry person that's just recently died about a month ago, a guy called Tommy Green. Tommy Green, I knew Tommy quite well, and Tommy was well known in the northwestern sort of caravan manufacturing area. Tommy had started his caravanning experience, or should I say production, manufacturing, design at Knowsley Caravans. Knowsley were a manufacturer from, I'm going to move on it because I am in a Toro that's got a, what do you call it, going off, that you'll see a review on. Fire alarm, smoke detector thing keeps clicking off. So I'll do this as I'm walking about maybe. Yeah, Tommy started off with Knowsley Caravans, and Knowsley were a very, very good regarded manufacturer at Wigan, in Tommy's sort of stomping ground. And there he worked with two brothers, John Darwin and also Cyril Darwin, and they worked with Knowsley in the late 60s. And then Tommy helped set up Trophy Caravans. Now, Trophy were made originally at Liverpool in about 1971-72, and they were called Trophy because they were made near the Aintree race course. And of course, the Trophy, you know, the Aintree Trophy. Trophy then eventually moved a couple of years later, and they moved up to Croston, just a little village outside of Preston, which is a lovely little spot. If you're ever around that area, go and have a look at Croston. There's a real nice bit where the church is, really little bit of picturesque, and the river runs through there as well. I think it's the River Weaver, I'm not sure, I can't remember. Anyway, that's by the by. So Tommy was there with Trophy. He took Johnny and Cyril went with him. And then, after a few years at Trophy, they decided to set up their own caravan manufacturing company, and they called that Vanroyce Caravans. That was in 1986. And I remember going and seeing the first Vanroyces at Hull, at Gibson Lane then, and they had a few of the vans about there. I saw very briefly met them, and they were about $6,500, brand new, but they had lots of kit in them, and they were really a clubman caravan. And they expected to sell maybe 4 or 5 caravans, and they sold over 20 caravans that weekend. Vanroyce had set up, and that was it. And Vanroyce soon got themselves a really, really good following. In fact, Vanroyce became very, very popular, and you'd see Vanroyces all over the place. I mean, they weren't a mass-produced caravan, and they were going to be made at Standish near Wigan. Now, Vanroyce had a bit of a checkered history after, because what happened was Vanroyce got an outside person involved who said, look, you know, get away from that little factory in Standish, Wigan. We'll build one up at Skelmersdale. We've got a factory there, and it's all modern, and that's where we're going to go. And, you know, but I'm going to buy into the company. So that's what happened. They hadn't been there very long, and they ran into difficulties. And ABI came along, and they bought Vanroyce. Now, ABI at that time were making Toro's Ace awards. So we're talking here very sort of mid-90s. 94, but they didn't make them. They moved the factory literally from Skelmersdale. They moved all production over, not to ABI at Swanmore Industrial Estate, where the main Toro production was. They moved it to Autotrail because Swift had bought ABI, had bought Autotrail some years previously, and it was their way of getting to the motorhome side of things. And basically what they did then was they built Vanroyces at the Auto Trail factory. Now, of course, come 96, 97, ABI then hit the buffers, and the company was bought out by a guy called Klesch. I think he was called Gary, and he was American, and the motorhome side was sold off to Trigano. Now, Vanroyce then stopped production, but then in about 1999, 2000, 2001, they started to make Vanroyces again, but they were never ever quite the same, and by that time they'd lost their way, and eventually stopped production. But Tommy, Cyril and Johnny, all after the Vanroyce original factory closed out, the factory at Skelmersdale finished and was sold off to ABI, they started up a new company called Vanmaster Caravans. Now, I got very involved with Vanmaster. I went to see them, and they were literally, they had a chassis and a floor, and that was it. And a little unit not far from where they started Vanroyce. And I remember saying to them, what's the story here? And said, we'll have our van, because it's coming like an upmarket Vanroyce. And the Vanmaster name was used off an old GRP DIY caravan shelter you could buy in the 70s and 60s called Vanmaster. Anyway, we'll not get involved with all that. So he started up Vanmaster, and for some years they ran a successful company. But again, that fell foul, and Tommy, Cyril, Tommy came away from that and then went on to doing other things. He should have been snapped up by the caravan industry really, but he wasn't. He was a very clever guy, had some very good ideas, and he was very good at customers as well. He'd had some health problems in his early 40s. I think he'd had a first heart bypass in his early 40s in the 1980s. And then some years ago, I know he'd been taken quite ill, but he was fine again. He was off and up and running. But as I say, Tommy died apparently a few weeks ago now, about a month ago now, and I just think that it's sad that he was never remembered in the caravan industry. So that's my little bit of a memorial to him. Also, another note is Quentin Willson. Now, I don't know if you remember Quentin Willson from the original Top Gear. I like Quentin Willson. I think he was very good. I was never keen on his EV stance, but anyway, the thing is, I've got, and I'll show you on this video, is that I wrote to Quentin and said, look, come Top Gear, show a bit more, something about caravans, be more positive. And this was in 1997. And I knew that they didn't want to be bothered really, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go. Anyway, a couple of weeks later, I actually got a letter signed by Quentin himself, which you'll see at the end of this video, and he just wrote a letter saying, well, yeah, we're not really into the caravan side of things. Tony Mason, the guy who did the old car stuff, he'd done a thing on classic caravans, but they weren't going to make it a regular feature. It wasn't their way, which was fair enough, but he took time to write to me, and I just thought it was really, really good of him, and he signed it, and I kept that letter. And when I heard he died the other day, I was really saddened by it. I'd only ever seen him, I never actually met him. I remember thinking I saw him at one of the car shows years ago, and I never actually got to say hello to him. But anyway, rest in peace, Quentin, because you were a unique car journalist, no doubt about it. Yeah, you'll be missed on the car scene. So that's the end of this vlog. Just a big thank you for everybody that's been telling me about the van, getting the Ranger back out again, and I'll just going to stick those videos on willy-nilly, so you might not hear anything for weeks, then all of a sudden two might appear, but it's going to be about cleaning it up, just doing that sort of thing, until next year we get the tyres on. I'll say where I got the tyres done, and it might be a bit, if it's boring for people, skip it, don't bother looking, obviously, but some people might find it interesting, and some of those people that are finding it interesting, thank you very much for all your feedback. You just great. So on that note, I'm going to call this a day, and again say thank you very, very much for watching the video, watching the channel, and also keep your eye out as well for a special classic I'm doing on a 1958 Pemberton Caravan, which I really enjoyed doing. Anyway, and one update as well is the Lunar Venus has now been sold, and I'm going to be doing a video on its new owner as well, so look out for that over the next few weeks. Unfortunately, the other little Lunar, the original little Lunar, is still for sale. If anybody's interested, please message me on the Facebook page of Caravan Industry Expert. Bye for now, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.